Welcome to Lynn's Warriors, where we fight for the safety, dignity, and future of every child. David Monahan returns to the Warriors today. He's very brave to educate us and update us about. Last time we spoke about the phone-free schools sweeping America and how that would affect how teachers, it would affect their teachings, how it would affect kids, how it would affect parents, and what several months later, what has come from that. We do want updates and we want to follow up on this. There's a lot of good news. Let's talk about David for a minute. David is the campaign manager at Fairplay, the leading nonprofit, creating a world where kids can be kids. Amen to that is what I say. Fairplay is devoted to protecting every child from hidden harms in today's digital and consumer marketplace. They challenge exploitative designs, exposing toxic products, and confront unsafe technologies that target children. David Monahan plans and implements Fairplay's campaigns and builds partnerships with advocacy groups and policymakers. David was an assistant attorney general in the Consumer Protection Division of the Massachusetts Office of the Attorney General for 15 years, including 6 years as deputy division chief. The website is fairplayforkids.org. I'm just going to say, let's get to it. Welcome, David Monahan, back to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn, so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and I appreciate your having me back. Plus, I love to be on where you will give my quick bio because A, no one wants to talk about themselves, and B, I can never really say the word exploitative without stumbling on it. So thank you. I owe you for
thanks, David, but I couldn't say the word attorney. I stumbled.
I know.
I
Well,
stumbled, but guess what? And I gladly say this, today's discussion, there is so much going on. I feel like, David, every day the public, parents, caregivers are hit over the head. Something with our kids, something with technologies, especially AI, but something that I think is working, and you'll explain. Last time we spoke about the phone-free classrooms and what's going on across America, how this is playing out. The floor is yours. Tell us about this.
I appreciate it. And yes, the news is very good about the progress that has been made in the last year. And that's good, not only because we're going back to schools being more engaging places, more inspiring places, not places where kids are just ignoring one another and the teachers buried, in their phones, but it really shows us that we can have a say. We did talk the last time I was on, I think a fair amount about the exploitative business model and how it harms young people by manipulating them into spending too long online, which is displacing activities that are crucial to their healthy development, but it also exposes them to so much harmful content and bullying and threats. And the idea that even in school you would be staring at your phone is so concerning. But one of the things that's exciting about the progress is that there has been progress toward making the internet generally safer for young people. There's been a lot of bipartisan support for the Kids Online Safety Act, and we continue to promote that in Congress. There's been advancement on state design code bills where what the impacts of practices are on young people's well-being has to be taken into account for sites that they visit. But there still has been a sense of, wow, even with all this support, where are the results? Where is the change? It seems almost that there's this inexorable march for kids to have more and more screen time at younger and younger ages. And it's great to have support to do something about it, but you'd like to see results sometime, right? And you'd like to see that we can have a say. And with the idea of phones in schools, we're seeing the results now. In the US, 20 states now have bell-to-bell phone rules in place. That means from the first bell in the morning till they get out in the afternoon, you can't have the phone. So there's no distraction. There's greater engagement. And we'll talk about some of the ways that really transforms the school environment. But the fact that advocates have been able to make that progress in just a year, you kind of chalked up the change in schools as to just one more thing that we'll just have to go along for the ride on. And now that we see, wait a minute, with folks working together, people on both sides of the aisle, lawmakers, advocates like ours, parents, educators, saying, wait a minute, we want to change, and we've accomplished it, right? So I think that that's really inspiring for people to say, we do have a say. And you mentioned AI briefly. AI is starting to encroach upon schools. And many of us feel like we need to put up another stop sign there and talk about, well, who has invited AI into education and who has shown whether it works? So it's really exciting, that we've made this progress. And Fairplay has worked with some other great partners. So we work closely with the organization that I believe you know well called the Phone Free Schools Movement, but
Yes.
others like the Anxious Generation, Excel in Ed, Smartphone Free Childhood US, the Becca Schmill Foundation, Mothers Against Media Addiction. All of these organizations have worked together over the last year and made a difference to work with lawmakers and say, we need to change what's going on. And I can tell you a little bit more about like the core of what I think the problem was in schools, but let me stop there and see if you have questions or thoughts. And I don't want
No,
to.
I no, listen, I want you to go on about this because I'm very I really want our warriors listening to understand what you pointed out. A couple of things. Then I'll let you continue. Is truly, although we work on Kids Online Safety Act and different, pieces of legislation, it's really not political. I know that may sound strange. Like this is about our kids and our families and teachers, education and mental health. It's truly bipartisan, belongs to no political party. Things going on have been human rights abuses. So coming together has been a beautiful thing. We can all agree on this one thing. I think this is where we have common ground. And the second thing is, David, so many great things have happened in such a short amount of time. We cannot lose focus about that. If we can do as much as I've seen done, I'm not kidding, in maybe the last 18 months to 2 years, can you imagine how much more we will and can do? And we just have to raise the awareness and get everybody involved. And that's exactly what we're doing. And it's very hopeful. And I also want to just point out one other thing. This is because I've had parents sometimes respond to me like, oh, great. So I'm a bad parent. No, there are no bad parents or anything like that. This is a lot to take in for us, right, David? Like it's so much going on. We're here to help. We want to do the heavy lifting for you. We want you to share what we're talking about, leverage the internet for good. Talk to your kids, talk to your neighbors, talk to family members. It's all good. We just want to give you the information. Now, David, I'll let you continue.
You made all good points there, and that last point about parents is so important. And this is something that we talk about at Fairplay a lot. When we're talking about guardrails on social media, we're talking about helping out parents. When we're talking about removing phones from schools, we're talking about helping out parents. Big tech would have you point the finger at parents and say, well, they're the gatekeepers. They can decide what kids will do. Doesn't work that way if you're manipulating young people and luring them to gaming sites and social media sites. And when we realized that tobacco was as dangerous as it is, we didn't say, well, it's up to the parents. Don't let your kid go down to the corner store and buy a pack. We said we need to keep them out of the hands of young people and we need to not advertise them. Yeah, absolutely. What we're talking about is something to aid parents. And if you think about it, giving kids at least 7 hours a day where there's not any lure to be online and there's not a struggle and they're not hearing the pings, that is so helpful to parents, to give young people that chunk of time to see, you know what, it really is more fun and interesting to be looking people in the eye, listening to the teacher, engaging, being in the hallways in the lunchroom, having fun. I'll take the chances with those things any old time over the lures of social media. And, the Anxious Generation did some really interesting research where they found that close to 50% of young people wish that the major social media platforms had never been invented. Now, that doesn't mean that when you say, hey, we want to take your phones away, they're like, oh, great, I'm so tired of it. They still put up a stop sign, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But at the core, they don't want that tension and pressure and the kind of judgment that they're getting all the time on social media. But I think it's helpful to just kind of look at the core of what school has become about. And let's talk about it in the past tense, because we said there are 20 states that have bell-to-bell rules in place. There are a lot of other states where it's kind of evolving, and districts are deciding what to do. It's the same in Canada. So in Quebec, there are bell-to-bell rules in place now. In other provinces, it's up to the districts. Let's talk about it as the past tense, because we're going to put it in the past tense. But the way school had become recently is that a teacher would start the class, and I've taught college and law school classes, but I haven't had the pleasure, maybe one day I will, of teaching third or fourth or fifth graders. But when I think about doing that, to me, what's exciting is you start the class and you look out at all of those bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kids looking up at you, ready to learn, right? Well, what school had become is the teacher looks out and all of the students have their heads buried in their phones. They're not ready to engage with the teacher. They're not ready to engage with each other. And then there's a struggle. You can't start the class if you have to say, put your phones away, and Johnny, this is the third time I'm talking to you, so now there's some discipline I'm imposing. That is contrary to engagement and feeling good about the classroom. The whole energy is bad if that's the way you're starting out class. Think about the hallways and the lunchroom. If kids are ignoring one another, and I'm going to get to some happy stories in a minute, I promise, Lynn.
I hope so.
I know.
Just teasing you, just teasing.
If you think of the lunchroom and kids literally ignoring one another, and it's not their fault, right? Like, the phone is luring them. And we all know about that, like, uncomfortability. We all know about getting on an elevator and using our phone as a crutch. Like, I'm not in the mood to say hello to anyone today. Well, if you're 12 years old and maybe you came out of COVID where you didn't even have to talk to anyone, you might not even have that ability to just strike up a conversation. I think of all the fun I had in lunch in school. In junior high school, we used to play that football game with a folded up paper. I don't know if you remember that. I think I ate the same bologna sandwich every day for 2 years in junior high school. In high school, we used to talk about baseball, and I had kind of a nerdy group of friends that were into history. We created something called the Guadalupe Hidalgo Society, that's the treaty that ended the Mexican War. I don't remember why we came up with that, but we used to have such a blast. And recently, kids were ignoring one another in the lunchroom. Now, here's some good news. When you transform schools by removing phones and going back to the way they were, it's pretty quick. For if you do it in the right way, there's this culture change, and there's engagement again in the classrooms, and the teachers are not struggling to get young people to pay attention. In the hallways and in the lunchroom, they're engaging. And I heard two good anecdotes. One was a principal in St. Louis who said, I never thought I'd be so glad to hear a racket in the lunchroom and to see kids pranking one another. Like, I used to get upset, stop with the pranks, but I'm like, this is so much better than the kids staring at their phones. I was on a panel with a superintendent from Marietta, Georgia, and he specifically mentioned that football game that I used to play, that the kids used to just ignore one another. And now he goes in the lunchroom and they're having a blast, and these paper footballs are flying. That's the way, that's some of the evidence that engagement is coming back. Now, I mentioned kids being hesitant. A lot of them put up a stop sign, and a lot of parents are hesitant as well. So if you're going to make the transition successfully, you do need to reach out to the community, and you need to talk to parents about why you're doing this, and you need to make them feel like they're part of the process. You need to feel make the teachers feel part of the process. Talk about whatever the system is, and there are yonder pouches, there are lockers. In some schools, they kind of trust kids to put it away, the phone away in their own locker. But you need to have everyone feel invested in how you'll do this and so important is why you will do it. And talk about the way kids are being manipulated and talk about the engagement that will be returned. And then I've been blabbing a little bit again, but related to that is I try not to use the B word, which is ban. And I'm happy to share some of my thoughts on that.
Um, where do I go with everything you said? I just want to go back. A couple of teachers told me just yesterday they were never so happy to hear noise in the lunchroom. They forgot what it sounded like.
Mhm.
Um, I live here by a middle school, and I was walking by, and I know some of them, and they started telling me the kids were out in the yard kind of thing, and they're like, we forgot what it sounded like, right? Because we've all seen, whether it's a restaurant, we know they've done it in the cafeterias, everybody at the same table next to each other, but they're all on phones. They're on iPads. They're just not communicating. It's a wonderful thing. But I like that you pointed out. I think we have a duty. We have to make sure we have parents, kids, teachers, everybody kind of on board. We have to have some sort of plan in place. And every school district or school is different, every state. So that's important. That community comes together. We talk about it, and we include David the kids, not just like, we're going to put the phones away 9 to 3 or whatever that is. Let's include them in every single thing we do. They are so smart, David. I know you know this, and savvy today because they've grown up basically on the internet, whether we like it or not, right? Everything's shown and shoved in their faces. So let's actually, they're part of our digital partnership, our plan. And I do a lot of work behind the scenes with kids, and they love that once they open up and feel like, they trust me or something, or trust the adults in the room. They like that. They like conversing. They like feeling they're part of it. So that's a big thing. Everybody should include kids no matter what. Um, and the other thing I was going to say to you, I think I forgot, but it'll it'll definitely come back to me. So
Well,
let's
if
continue.
I could just add
Yeah,
a note about
please
that.
jump in. Please jump in.
Sure. So, it is so important, and studies are showing that kids are ready to give up their phones as
Yes.
long as they're part of the process. I think there was some research at Boston University, and I've had the pleasure of talking to young people around the country who are always hesitant at first. I was at a hearing at the Boston City Council over the summer. Now, the Boston City Council was not ready to instruct Boston schools, and their authority to do it might even be questionable. But they wanted to advise Boston schools about removing phones. And there were a lot of advocates like myself there to speak in favor of removing phones, but there were a lot of young people there as well. And 90% of them were there to say, you should trust us. Let us make the decisions. Don't take the phone away from us. Let us show you that we can be responsible. Now, the problem is too urgent to really go with that, right? Like, we don't say, well, cars are dangerous, so show us that you can be responsible, and we hope you'll choose to use a seatbelt. Like, it's too important, right? But it is, I think it's a helpful note about the fact that we need to be respectful of where they're coming from. We need to share the stories. I've had the pleasure of talking to students who say, I was so hesitant at first, but after a month, I was like, this is so much better. And I think an important thing, as I mentioned, is don't call it a ban. A ban just has so many negative connotations, right? Plays that were banned in Boston, books that are banned. There's always a Seinfeld reference in almost everything. Kramer was banned from the fruit shop because he was complaining too much about the melons that were overripe. No one wants to hear about a ban. And why should we call it a phone ban when phones didn't exist in schools 5 or 6 years ago, right? So I and others try to encourage people to not use the terminology of a ban. It makes young people feel like you're punishing them, right? So they haven't done anything wrong in choosing to bring their phones to school, right? We bring our phones every place. So we understand why they're bringing them. We understand why they're almost obsessed with them, in some cases obsessed, because they're designed to be that way. So no one is saying you were bad, we're taking your phone away.
Right.
So it helps to explain why you're removing phones, the engagement you'll think you'll bring back. It's great to have digital and social media literacy programs in concert with the changes that you're making. and just to let young people know, like, I'm sorry, we're not going to go along with your suggestion that we just trust you, but let's talk about why we're doing this and how we're doing it, and we're doing it because we care, and we think you're going to be excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We have a lot of kids here in New York City, New York State, that I would say probably the 25s and under to like 15 are actually giving up 1 day a week, giving up, or they have a standard, we meet every Sunday at this one park. Kids we've actually marched with, when we do our peaceful protesting. Um, they will say, we're angry that we were kind of the guinea pigs and this was thrown, but they're taking all of this, David, and they're creating this very positive movement. I mean, I'm seeing it's really building in New York, and they don't want their siblings or any kids younger to have to go through, what was kind of tested again, just thrown not only at the kids, at all of us, kind of thing. And I just remembered what I wanted to tell you. I was talking maybe about 6 months ago to a pediatrician friend, and he said, "Oh, about the tech neck." And I'm like, "What, the tech neck? What's the tech neck?" And he explained how kids are showing up with their vertebrae in the back of their neck bent
Mm.
from bending over, which we all do, or looking down at the phone. And then I started doing a little research, and I found, some on this tech neck. I think also to warn people. And I said to him, I said, what are we supposed to do? Like, he said, well, you have to tell people to hold and kids their phone like straight in front. But they're starting to see, which he said to me, over the decades, kids potentially
Mhm.
could be born with this curvature in from now. I don't know. This is what he was telling me, but I'm just saying it's something to be aware of. We have a lot of kids complaining of headaches, neck aches, shoulder. I dare say the doctor told me, a lot is from being on the devices, bending over, doing this, not sitting up straight. So just a little tidbit to throw in there. We got to be aware of all of this going on as well. Now, I
Yeah,
want to ask you about, yeah, what, I mean, I don't know. Have you heard anything about that?
yeah, no, I've heard a little bit about it, and this is a good point at which to just remind people that we also are talking about life and death when we're talking about social media use, because there are so many dangerous challenges, and there's content that promotes suicide, eating disorders. There's the sale of dangerous drugs. There's a fantastic group that we work closely with, Parents for Safe Online Spaces, or Parents SOS, and they've all lost young people to those harms of social media. But you're right, there's the physical harms of being bent over, there's the lack of ability to just engage and look people in the eye. And you mentioned young people, and I wanted to point out that on every level there are young people that are advocating. There are these phenomenal groups, like the Young People's Alliance and Design It For Us,
Yes.
that are literally in the halls of Congress advocating for safer spaces, and they're working, at the grassroots level as well. But just any school where young people can care. And you're right, Lynn, like, it's becoming cool again for people to push back, realize that unplugged is more fun and engaging. And the more we can get young people to understand, like, you are being used as guinea pigs, and the reason you're being kept online is because they want to know every personal detail about you. And the harms that are coming from chatbots now, leading kids down the wrong road, to considering suicide and that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of room for young people to be able to stand up and say, wait a minute, this is not the future that we want.
Right. Yeah. All those groups, David, you mentioned are the ones that when they come into New York or when we're in Washington, that we march peacefully with all those parents. That's what I was referring to. Like those young people Design It For Us. They give me lots of information.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't necessarily know, maybe what a 20-year-old is thinking or what their 15-year-old sibling. So I love to talk to them and get all this information. It fuels me to understand better how to present to the public. But they are
It
doing
makes me
terrific,
think of,
terrific work.
oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. And forgive me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It makes me think of what I was doing when I was like 17 and 18 and just playing ball and watching SNL, and I was not accomplishing great things like that. Those people are impressive, and I should point out there are groups in Canada as well. And our friends at an organization called the DAIS at Toronto Metropolitan University, they're fostering advocacy work by young people all across Canada as well. That's really inspiring.
Yeah, and it gives us so much hope because I want to remind everybody these are our future, American adults, if we're talking, or in Canada, and our future
Mhm.
American leaders. Just to put a little,
Absolutely.
and we want them empowered, and we want to give them all the support we can give them. Now we've got to talk about it because this AI, this artificial intelligence, that is just weighing down on all of us every single day.
Mhm.
Right now, no regulations really about any of this, right? Kind of just a Wild West free for all, the way I'm seeing it, although there's tremendous
Mhm.
pushback from various groups around the country where we are urging, we need protections, guardrails, something, right? Again, never the ban word because we do not like that word either. It is so negative,
Mhm.
David. The minute, everybody thinks they did something wrong, you hear ban, or
Right.
you hear about, First Amendment rights. It just derails everything. There's no banning of anything. We just want, guardrails. Why should parents or kids have to bear the responsibility of all this big tech? We need big tech to bear some responsibility now. So I don't know where to go with this, except what do you want to tell us about AI right now? Because that chat bot is really a machine. It is not your friend, although they market it your digital friend, your companion. You're not alone. It is very frightening, a word I don't like to use.
I think there's a couple of things I'd like to touch on. One relates to AI starting to encroach upon our schools.
Mm.
Now, I mentioned the inspiration from knowing that, hey, we all worked together and accomplished a goal, right? Like we made this progress. That's inspiring. One, because there are some states and provinces that still have a ways to go. And so we have a sense of how we can be working on a bipartisan basis to accomplish those things. But it also gives us hope that we can have a say with other things. Like if we look at how much time young people are just spending on devices in elementary school,
Yeah.
like who signed up for that? Is that working? Is it just luring them over to YouTube? There's a lot of information that there is, and actually, Gene Twenge had a great op-ed piece in the New York Times this Sunday that I recommend for folks. I had the title of it someplace close by.
I'll find it
I
and
would
put it in the
mention.
body of the video. I'll put it
Oh,
under the
it's
information.
thank you. It's called The Screen That Ate Your Child's Education. But we're all thinking about pushing back on the screen time in schools. And here comes AI. It's like like this thundering herd is coming at us. Who decided that that would be good for kids? There's so much that common sense just tells us that it's not. If kids are not just thinking creatively and sitting down, I used to put off when I had a term paper. Seemed like there was always a term paper during Christmas vacation, and I would always wait to go to the library like the third to the last day, and then I would start writing and typing. If kids today just have to throw a couple of ideas into a chat program like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
they're not thinking creatively. They're not doing the work. How is this preparing them to be good members of our community, good family members? Or is it just like preparing them to do certain jobs and feed information into an AI program? So there are a lot of questions that we are starting to ask about AI's place in education. And I can tell you that Fairplay is planning some work with partners in the coming months on the ability of all of us to say, hey, we stopped the phones in schools. Let's talk about AI now. And I think people do want a voice. But I should also mention that, especially with the holidays coming, we have an advisory that we're launching, and it's going to be signed by more than 75 organizations and more than 75 experts to say AI toys for kids, not a good thing. And they are currently being marketed to kids as young as, 5 and 6 years old, probably even younger. And what it amounts to, Lynn, I don't think either of us is a technological expert enough to really explain it well, but the way I explain it is there's a chatbot and it's wrapped up in a fuzzy toy, in a stuffy. And so it's got all of those things that are concerning for young people to be engaging with, the privacy concerns. It's leading the supposed play, right? So a kid is not deciding if you just have a doll and you decide who that doll is and what your relationship is and what you're going to do for the next hour. But a chatbot is telling you what you should do and what would be fun and what you should think about while it's recording you, and it may be recording video of you, and it's sharing all of that information with advertisers. So there's a lot that can harm children, and especially when they're being encouraged to see that doll as a friend. And that's the way a lot of these toys are being marketed to parents as like, oh, the latest, greatest technology, and they can be a true friend to your child. Now, we know the harms of AI programs leading young people to talk about disturbing things. In some cases, they have promoted suicide. Why would we want a corporation to be guiding play with our young people and be having, a supposed relationship with them? Our letter points out in more expert terms all of the ways that this can be harmful to young people. And it's coming out in a few days.
Oh, good. We'll make sure to share that. And I believe I signed it as well, our organization. I don't know,
Thanks.
David, and I try not to focus on it the way you just explained everything. We've seen the harm caused, history from social media. Okay. What didn't we learn? But we know we are speaking out. We do have stats and studies. We do have even Jonathan Haidt's book. One fact that always sticks with me is there's a direct correlation between the advent of the iPhone, I think it was 2007, and how children started suffering. That was the cool thing to get then, the iPhone. Parents didn't know, grandparents, everybody's buying the iPhones for the kids, new toy. And just the correlation of how critical thinking went down, education went down, mental health went down. And so we like to really try to use facts and stats to point out to people these things are happening. People will say to me, David, every day, I don't know if they say it to you, why? Why is this allowed? The only answer I have is because there's a lot of money being made and nobody wants to disrupt that cycle. And until they're held accountable, these corporations, it will continue, which is why we need the public and we need the warriors to get on board when we have take actions, Fairplay, terrific things you put out, people to sign on, people to support, people to share with their circles to really clamp down. Well, I don't want to sound like ban, but I'm going to say clamp down on this because we can't. It's the most incredible thing, David, when you really think about it, that a teddy bear or a Barbie doll, because my understanding of all my research, Mattel is all in on this with their toys, that a Barbie doll could have a camera and a voice and be talking to a 4 or 5-year-old girl. And we don't know where that information coming out of it will end up or tell the child. We no, nothing. This is the craziest thing. Yet we're so worried our entire lives about seatbelts, bicycle helmets. So I don't understand, David. I will never understand. And it is happening. More are stepping up, more understanding parents, families. This is like a national crisis, in my opinion, that we must all get on board, talk about it, and at least understand what's happening. And Fairplay is there right along with the warriors to help you along with what you need to do. And it's not too hard. It's not too hard, right? The steps. Finish us up with a warrior listening right now, a parent, a grandparent. We have a lot of grandparents that listen to us. I always say, David, they're like the untapped market for me because they always say, "Oh, Lynn, I have so much time on my hands. What more can I do?" And I'm like, okay, urge your representatives or sign on to the take actions or talk to the grandkids, talk to your kids, talk to your neighbors, talk to your knitting group, talk to your church, your synagogue group. Just keep talking about it. Somebody listening right now, finish us up, David. What do you want them to know? Because the last thing we want, I'm going to point it out because I want to be very realistic. We don't want them overwhelmed. Let's just break it down. Give us a takeaway right now that they're going to do right now.
What they can do is go to our website. I believe it's fairplayforkids.org. But
don't you know, David? Fairplay for Kids.
Our organization
I
is
love
called
to tease you.
Fairplay.
I love to tease you. Yes, it's
I know.
fairplayforkids.org.
We also house the Screen Time Action Network,
Yes.
which is an organization of parents, educators, advocates. There are a ton of resources on that website. I mentioned Phone Free Schools, and our partners at the Phone Free Schools movement, they have toolkits that Fairplay and their organization have put together that are free. So if you want to get involved on Phone Free Schools, if you're an administrator who wants to make the transition successful, or if you're a parent and your state or province and your or school district hasn't removed phones yet and you want to get involved, you can find a toolkit there for ambassadors that can help you get involved. But more broadly, you can pay attention, you can care, you can believe that we can all have a say, because you're pointing out really the crux of the problem. Did we sign up for this? Did we say that schools would do a better job of educating and preparing our children if we have devices in schools, if we have AI in schools? No, we did not sign up. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence to make you think, oh, goodness, here we go again. They're using our kids as guinea pigs. So the progress on schools should be inspiring, that we can all make a difference.
Yeah. And also, this is what you do to me, David. Every time I try to finish with you, I think of something else I want to,
Nope.
but people also have to understand they can just go into their school and very nicely ask, what's going on here? What's the curriculum with do we have one? Because a lot of parents say to me, oh, I can just walk in the school. And I'm like, sure you can. If your child goes to the school, or get another parent or two to join you, and very nicely you go in and then respectfully you say, hey, what's going on? Or could we form a group? Or could we do, an assembly maybe? Or you have a right to find out what's going on. And also Fairplay for Kids, .org, arm yourself with information. Go to that meeting armed with some facts and stats and refer, because again, it sounds simplistic, David. Just raising awareness and letting people know, or having a place for them to land, like fairplayforkids.org, is all people need to get the momentum going. But they don't know that even. So we want to share that.
You're absolutely right. And the good news is there's more fertile soil now for having those conversations.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, you might have been kind of yelling into an echo chamber to find someone who understood what you were talking about. Nowadays, if you ask at school drop-off or at soccer practice, do you care about the screen time in schools? Do you care about removing phones? It's not that difficult to find someone who will share your beliefs and your concern. And the next thing you know, you might find 4 or 5 parents, and you might ask for a meeting with the principal. You might even have, a little get together at school where you can get some other people. And there's strength in numbers. And you have every right to convey, to the principal and to the school board what your concerns are, and that you want them to do better and have practices that serve what's best, for your kids.
I think that's a great note to leave on. The website, everyone, is fairplayforkids.org. I will have information, David, in the body of this video about everything we talked about and all the links, because we want it always to be easy for everybody, here at the Warriors, to find this, take their time and read about things. I'm always recommending read about one thing a day. And David, what can I say to you? I mean, you just gave us a reality check. I'll call it that, a reality check, and a roadmap. And a simple roadmap. A roadmap. I like that one. I came up with that one. And the world our kids live in, I want to acknowledge, is very different than the one we grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Because another thing, David, people will always say, Lynn, what happened? I didn't grow up with the internet. Okay, David, you and me didn't grow up with the internet, but we adapt. We're learning what's going on with it. We're teaching others. So everybody has to, no judging here, but get with the program. This is the world we live in, so let's make it work. Somehow we're going to make it all work. And let's remind everybody that protecting children, is it's not nostalgia. It is truly a responsibility, I think, in 2025, heading into 2026. And it is really a fight. I'm going to call it a fight that we cannot afford to lose with everything going on. So coming together, following Fairplay, following the Warriors, collaborating, again, bipartisan, talking to your neighbors, your family, and your kids. That's what it's all about. So I want to just thank you, David. I always enjoy talking to you. You make me happy. because your information is always so happy for me. And it's a pursuit of truth. And you're doing an excellent job. And the Warriors were very proud to stand with you, to stand with Fairplay. And we look forward to everything also in the new year coming up. I think we're going to have a lot of great things happening because people are energized and people are coming together in groups and they do feel empowered and they do want to speak out. And so I think it's going to be a fantastic new year. And we're going to have some new research, lots of new victories. And I just say, David, promise me you'll come back soon because there always is so much to talk about.
I would love to come back, and I appreciate all the optimism, and I'm right there with you. Let's all keep working, and let's feel good about the future.
Thanks, David. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much.